The Book of Honey, by Isida Roshaz, Chapter 24, Cactus Pickle. Honey, I go at this tree until sweat is dripping from my body. Steam rises off me in the moon's light. Until my hands and feet were sore from hitting the tree and ground. Dirty from whatever was on the ground around the tree, doing cartwheels and practicing falls. Weaving and dodging my nightmares till my limbs were made of lead, I couldn't move anymore. I cool down by doing complex stretches that work all the kinks out of my body. I sat at the base of the tree, not more than a minute. My phone flashed. I never leave without one. Now was not a time to be stupid despite my mood. I pulled it out to see William had texted me. "Where are you?" I couldn't help smiling. "Outside." "Where, please?" "You're a good detective, come and find me, I promise I didn't go far." I timed him and even clapped tiredly when I saw his flashlight headed my way. "Good job, William, you found me." I sit, laughing a little, slap happy from being tired. William questions me. "What are you doing out here sitting on the ground, mostly naked?" He takes off his coat like a gentleman. I smile and say, "Keep it, I am warm." He shakes his head when he sits next to me. I explain to him. I picked a fight with a tree and won. William laughs when he says, "You seem tired." I nod my head. "I'm coming down so I can't sleep." After I would fight, I would sit in the shower room, cleaning and repairing my gear that helped me wind down. That would be the last time I'd get to be alone for over a month. That came out in a blur. Things I had no intention of telling him. William says to me, "You're tired, it's making you tipsy." I nod, that must be it. William says, "You've told me that before." I nod and say, "Yeah, I didn't mean to, that was an odd day for me." It's not every day a girl is freed from human enslavement to hide in the middle of the English countryside. William laughs at me again. When I asked him, "How did you know I was gone?" he shrugged. "I knew when I knocked you weren't there. When I knocked on the door you didn't respond. You always respond even if it's unpleasant." I smiled at William. He was paying attention to me again. He was always taking a far closer look at me than I like from most people. No alarm went off, my skin wasn't crawling, I was just enjoying his supportive interest in me. If anyone else were to do that, I'd be upset. For some reason, I can't understand, I don't seem to mind him keeping an eye on me. Then he asks, "Did something happen while I was gone?" I say sharply, "Nope." He hesitates and asked me, "Was it brunch?" I'm sorry if it's too much pressure. I give him a look that makes him not finish his sentence. Then I say, "William, stop being subconscious, this happened." I stopped what I was about to say. I still didn't want to say it out loud. Whatever. William asks, "What?" Rolling my eyes heavily, I say, "I kind of missed you." He smiled in a way that made me want to smack him. I shake my head. I know he's going to make a big deal out of it. He asks me, "Is that why you were pissing on everyone?" I let out a sigh. "No, Brom caught me." This look was just as smackable as the last. When William slyly asked me, "What did he catch you doing?" I point at him and say, "Gods, whatever you're thinking, shut up, William." This time he laughed. I was too tired to care about his dirty mind. So I just flipped him in the forehead and he shut up. When I saw you come up the drive, I kind of got excited and started jumping down the stairs to say hi to you. Brom was right there at the end of the steps. He sees me and I see him, and I knew he knew. "Is it so bad to miss me?" I rolled my eyes and made a face. It's not that I was feeling that way, it was the fact that he caught me. I wasn't paying attention, and he got me. It kind of messed with some stuff inside me. I couldn't get over it or put myself back together. I lost sight of my gravity center. I came out here to fix my compass. William just gave me a blank stare. He tells me, "I swear you talk like Beck." "I think I know what you're saying, explain it to me." This time my look was annoyed. I said to him. When he caught me in that moment, I kicked myself. I pride myself on being able to see someone coming from miles away. I was looking forward to seeing you. It was this earth-shattering moment. He caught me feeling that way. It pissed me off. I don't want anyone to see me having that feeling. I continued. One feeling swallowed the other and it made me angry. It kept getting bigger. I pushed you when I wasn't dealing with it well. I know it didn't hurt you luckily, but I can't do that here. I can't just hit or knock people to the ground when I feel like it now. What scares me the most is that I might hurt someone in a way that I can't take back. I've already punched you. William lets out a big sigh. To my surprise, he responds to me a little bit pointed and assertive. Almost a chesting up moment. It made me sit up a little straighter and pay attention to what William was saying. He tells me, "As you can see, I am still standing. There is something you do that is very annoying to me, honey." I was surprised at his confession. I asked him, truly wanting to know, "What annoys you, William?" I look at William. When he looks me dead in the eyes and says, "You think I'm fragile, breakable, and weak. You take my quick, complacent attitude to mean that I have no pushback or authority in me. I too have seen my fair share of knife fights, gunfights, and fist fights. You are a badass, I will hand it to you. I didn't get to where I am being a pushover or a featherweight. Honey, I've known Beck for 7 years and 5 of those years were him as my mentor. Let me tell you that surviving his basic training was hell. But I did it. I am plenty able to fight as it comes. You may call me slow, but that is compared to you and the level you operate at. I may not be the badass mad genius that you are. I am not a witless man, honey, that can't stand up and fight. Aside from you and Beck, I have never met anyone that could outthink me at what I do. Do you think Beck would have left you in my care if I was an absolute pushover?" Filing this rant away to think about it later. I roll my eyes up to the right to think about what he said. All I say to him is, "I never thought about that." I guess I really shouldn't question Bruce Beck's judgment now, should I? I let him take that one however he was going to. Then William asked me. This time it sounded a little self-conscious again. He asked me with a note of apprehension. "Did it really embarrass you being caught having feelings for me?" Staying quiet for a moment, then shaking my head. I take my time answering William. I don't want to make him think that my feelings are something I regret. That will never be the case. When I did answer him, I said, I know that feelings like this can make things messy. I have seen plenty of mess in this life. I want to have time to think about this. Not to share them, not even with you right now. Being new to these kinds of feelings in our case, I think should be done carefully. I don't know what this will lead to. I am just following what my guts are telling me. Taking the fact that our ages are so different out of this for a second. Thinking about all the other parts of life that need to be considered. William says to me, it doesn't have to be complicated. I told him, I understand that and agree with you. To uncomplicate my feelings, I have to look at all the angles and make decisions for myself without anyone to interfere. The less complicated, the better. William asked me again, then what really made you embarrassed? I stopped to think about it. Then I tell him, it's like he stole that moment from me, William. A small happy moment I've been waiting days for, and he stole it from me. Because he was there, and he saw me, I couldn't have it. It sounds childish, but once he saw me, caught me with that feeling. I froze. All I wanted to do was tell him to fuck off. I knew if I made a big fuss about it, that I wouldn't get that moment back. Top it off with the fact that I'm here having happy moments with you. And my kids are still in hell. I have been struggling with the guilt of leaving them. As all these thoughts and feelings happened at once, I was losing control. That is something I can't do without consequences. I have been a mindless monster in the past, and I never want to be like that again. Losing sight of my freedom and who I am is a terrible thing. To say that out loud, I knew that I must have been tired. He too thought about my words. William asks me, does it hurt to know they're out there without you? I admit out loud plainly, yeah, it does. They were a big reason why I kept my sanity for so long. Now I feel like I've failed them. In that moment he looked at me surprised. I stop and sigh. Then I say to William, what we are doing is not wrong, William. I don't regret our mutual interest. I just want this to be mine with you for now. Those words came out muddy and a bit unorganized. I know I was all over the place. I stopped because I was letting my mouth run away with me. When William says, that was a bit of a mess. I do think I understand what you're saying. I just lean my forehead on my knees and say, yeah, well, my mouth is running away with itself because it's you, William. My mouth tends to slip in your presence. He asks me, somewhat amused. Is that so? Well, that makes me kind of happy. I say sarcastically. Yeah, I'm so glad that you're happy at my loss of control, William. He chuckled at me, as I started to shiver from being sweaty. So, I stand up and dust myself off, putting on my hoodie and pants. When I turned and saw William staring at me, normally I'd punch a guy for that kind of obvious display of interest in my body. But this was William, and despite the fact that I didn't make it obvious, I have a lot of interest in William. I have plans to see what he's all about and to see if he is worth getting closer to. I shrugged, deciding to be bold. Once I was dressed, I scooted closer to William, leaning my head on his shoulder. I even let him put an arm around me. Once again my skin didn't crawl, and he placed his arm around my waist. like it was comfortable for him. He didn't move it or try to cope a feel. Letting it happen was nice. I was enjoying being close to William. When I was ready, we walked back. We talked along the way. William tells me, "When I came back, I thought you had a problem with the brunch thing." I say, "I mean, I was thinking about it. Yes, it seems like a big deal." "I think you're taking that one harder than me." He let out a sigh and agreed. "Yes, you're probably right. I'm dreading it. It's not the business side of things. It's the personal side that makes my skin crawl." A shiver runs through William. "Don't worry, William, if any bad guys show up for real, I will beat them up for you if you'd like." He makes a sharp remark. "Even Manfred Cross." I mimic a gesture I've seen William use a few times, placing my hand on my chest like I was checking my heart out. I say sarcastically, "Ow, damn William, that one kind of hurt. You got me." That would be the one exception. He is the scariest motherfucker I have ever known. I laugh when William asks me, "Why, does he scare you?" I get at him saying bye-bye to me. That was horrifying. I told him, "Oh William, try being a 7-year-old." He tapped in saying nighty, "Night honey, have sweet dreams." William stopped to think of the possibilities. Dear Lord, did you ever sleep? No, you know that he was my trainer. He nods. Yeah, I remember. I noticed William was starting to shiver. I stand up holding my hand out. He didn't hesitate to take it as we walked back. I tell William about some of my time with Manfred. In all that time, I have only hit him a total of 15 times, that I have hurt him. Believe me, I kept count. William said to me, "I probably would as well, lucky to have survived the encounter." I smile and speak. I never took him to the mats. Everything about him is solid, his footwork, his form, his stamina, and a warrior's grace. I have never seen anyone that fits the description of a mountain giant more than him. William comments on my enthusiastic way of describing Manfred and his training. "You seem so animated about this." I shrug and say, "Yeah, I consider myself very lucky to have gotten Manfred as my trainer. It was hard, grueling work, but what he taught me on the inside has kept me alive all this time. He considers me his girl. Nobody on the lower levels could touch me." Ultimately, he was the reason why I decided to flip on Victoria. Without his support, I would have never made it. William asked in his business tone, the one he used when he was Chief Superintendent William Sheeran. "How did that happen? In all the interviews and information you passed, you never mentioned that you were working with Cross, or that he was flipping with you." I tell William, "When I decided to ruin JJ for good, I knew I would be punished. When Victoria is generous, she lets you pick the person who hands you out the punishment. I always picked Manfred Cross to hand me my punishment. I knew I'd walk away with my life. I was his investment, so I meant something to him." After that, he and I got into a conversation about how the place had gone to the dumps. That we should just light it on fire. The biggest surprise was that he agreed with me. William gave me a dark look. "What does punishment mean, honey?" We had been holding hands when he came to a stop waiting for me. As we look at each other, outside the western gate to the Bacon House. It's a bit scary to think that William might walk away from me. When I was starting to feel something more. I figured if he was going to run, I should give him a real reason. I say to him, "It means taking a beating without defending yourself," where she could see, if I had defended myself, it would go on longer. Manfred never pulled his punches, or she wouldn't let me pick him the next time. William was quiet when I looked at him. He was taking deep breaths. When he says to me, "That man beat you?" I nod and say, "Yes, more than once." Gods, I knew I should have shot that sob when I had the chance. I had never seen William like this. Seeing him so angry on my behalf made butterflies buzz around my stomach. I laughed thinking about William shooting Manfred. It was one of those laughs that made me question my sanity at times. William gets frustrated and says, "I don't know why you're laughing at this, honey. I mean it. I will shoot that sob the next I see him." I take a deep breath and steady myself. When I say to William, "I don't doubt that you mean exactly what you're saying, William. If you must defend yourself against Manfred, shoot first, ask later. I won't say a damn thing. I'm very glad you weren't there when I had to take my punishments." William was very angry at this point. He was angry for me, not at me, so it was different than the last time I made him mad. This feeling was stirring up inside me. One I didn't have very often. The vengeance in William's eyes was turning me on. William says, "Why the hell would you be grateful for taking a beating from that troll, honey?" William's demand for understanding brought me back to the ground. I looked down at my feet when I said this next part. If I didn't pick Manfred, I would have had to pick someone else. There's no telling what else they would have done. Manfred would give me a beating, that was it. He'd take my unconscious self back to my kids or the punishment pit to serve out in isolation. Then it would be done. Anyone else was a gamble. It hit William like a ton of bricks when he started apologizing to me. "I'm sorry, honey, I didn't mean, I didn't know." I held up my hand to stop William from tripping all over himself. I say to him, "Don't apologize for something you didn't do, William. It's flattering to watch you be all angry and defensive of me. You know I can defend myself. Now I never have to take things like that ever again." It was way more than an understanding between me and Manfred. There are two reasons. I will always respect Manfred. He taught me how to survive on my own, and he introduced me to the man he loves. William stopped, stunned at what I confessed. "No. You're joking." I shake my head and tell him. Dead serious. He played Mr. Fling and flirt around the compounds. I even watched him pay women to get drugged and sleep it off in random beds. He threw a t-shirt with some fancy cologne at them, and that was it. He had no interest in women. We would spend the rest of that time fighting or going over strategy. In later years it was all work. William lets that roll around in his mind. When he says, as terrifying as that sounds, it's almost hilarious. I laugh and say, the first 5 years were different. It was him, me, and Anong. There were others, but only 4 of us made it out of that box together. It was not a summer camp. Manfred was always fair, and I put in the effort. I was solely focused on what the 2 of them had to teach, and Manfred was praised for all of my success. I was the first kid to make it out of the crates without losing it or dying. The combination of their fighting styles put me at a different level. The credit went to Manfred. Victoria never knew Anong started training me as well. We raked in cash for Victoria, it made us relevant to her. I stopped walking to think about the changes that took place over the time I was on the inside. William stopped and asked, "What is it?" Manfred taught me all the basics, but his partner Anong Wong taught me parkour and martial arts. As well as math and science. He used to say a balance between mind and body would make me a better fighter. Anong was an accountant for Victoria. He was out, unlike Manfred, that is why he was allowed to be so close to her. She only liked men as guards and playthings. He was brilliant with numbers and computers. I learned many things from him. He also came from a family of martial artists. He liked to come down to the yards. His excuse was to keep an eye on the assets up close. So, he would be able to tell what to cut at the root. I knew better. He was always in Manfred's yard, where all the little shits were too afraid to tread. Watching them fight together was one of the most beautiful things I remember to this day. It was like a clash of titans. I crack a smile thinking about their fights. When I continue, Anong was the only one who got the best of Manfred. They never pulled their punches with each other. The raw ferocity and power between them. It was a sight hard to look away from. I tell William, Anong taught me how to channel my source of calm over rage. He knew what I needed to hit the next level. They were very careful not to let Victoria know about their relationship. She holds a flame for Manfred. It was never what she wanted. William asked me, "What about all the flinging he did?" I say, the best I could figure was that she never had a problem with women. She knew all paled comparison to her. The thought of a man having something she wanted killed her. I've watched her break some of the most macho guys I've seen. I was 10 at the height of my power and success. Between Manfred and Anong, I was unstoppable. William and I arrived at the patio. We decided to sit on the outdoor furniture. He grabbed a blanket, wrapped us up under it. I was holding his hand as I continued to tell William about Manfred and Anong. William asked, "How did you meet JJ?" I say to William, "That was around the time JJ showed up. My beef with him started long before what he had done to Kip. He would eyeball me across the yards." This made William stiffen. So, I held his hand a little bit tighter. He was her newest fuck nugget. He had managed to charm Victoria in a way that no one else had ever done. Her protection gave him the balls to say he wasn't scared of Manfred where he couldn't hear. I'd catch his eyes following me. So, it was my job to know where he was in the yard at all times. Pausing to think about it, I told William. He did this for months. I was always by Manfred's or Anong's side. Something must have been said. One day Manfred was called away. The difference was, he didn't take me with him. He told me to stand alert in the yard. He knew something was going to go down. I take a deep breath. I did exactly what Manfred said, and he was right. Not long after Manfred walked, JJ was nibbling around the edges of the yard. I saw him coming. He tried talking to me. Things like "Hey little girl" or "Little Leona B." Dose the B stand for bitch. On and on as he went. I stood there with silent attention, ignoring him. He didn't know I'd learned Spanish and French by the time I was 7. But by far my favorite language was Russian. There is nothing like cursing someone out in Russian. When he tried to touch me, I stepped away. When he started getting more aggressive, I didn't hold back. A crowd started to gather around the edges. That was the scariest moment. I would rather have been in the cage a million times better than being surrounded by crowds. If I had gone down that day, I knew that I would not be the same when I came back up. I stopped to look at William. He was silently looking at me and giving me his full attention. He asked me, "Did that ever happen to you?" I asked him, "Would it matter if it had?" William didn't even hesitate. "God's damn it, honey, what kind of monster do you take me for?" I just shrug. "It's a question, William." "Yes, a very serious one," I reply. "I didn't ask it lightly, William." He sighs very heavily. "I would never reject you for something like that." This time I sighed. To answer your question, no, I always came out on top each time it came to that. There were some close calls. That's why this. I hold up our hands. Scares me. I've always felt their stares and their longing. To me, every one of them were after what was mine to give. There was silence between us, and then William asked me, "What about me, honey?" I smiled at him, thinking about him when I first saw and met William. Other factors played in my decision. I wasn't ready to let William know. Uncle Bruce had asked me about what I thought of William. Now that I think about it, that was a very loaded question. I wonder if he knew what he was doing when he chose William to help be my handler. I say to William thoughtfully, "When Uncle Bruce asked what I thought about you, I let it sink in sometimes. Then you took over the message board from Uncle Bruce. I felt you knew what you were doing, and when some of your questions helped me pursue a lead, I was impressed that you could keep up with my 360-degree way of thinking. Uncle Bruce could verily do it. It became a much smoother operation once you started taking over on the computer." William nagged me. "You still didn't answer me." I rolled my eyes. "The night you arrested JJ. I asked myself what it was that happened to me. Why did I tell you so much when I normally kept to myself? Why did I feel like it was okay and right? When I was always cautious with strangers and men, I struggled with it. Most nights I don't dream. Whenever I do, it usually involves my daddy or my papa. Anytime I dream about my daddy, I know it's his way of saying sit up and pay attention, baby girl." I looked at William for a moment to gauge his reactions to what I was saying. All I could see was he was listening and trying to keep up with everything I'd said. So, I tell him about my dream. This dream I've had twice in the clinic, and this is what he said. "You can fight any way you want, with whatever you have at your disposal, even in the darkest place, my girl. You found a light, never losing what you're fighting for. They will gather around you in all your guts and glory, cheering your name. When you know they know." William thought about it when he asked, "Do you think you know what he meant by that?" I repeat the words out loud. When you know they know. I know I'm not afraid of you, William. I know that you don't want to take what is mine to give. No one but you gets to see this. I stopped to point at my hands again. That is what upset me so much. Brom saw what I only want you to see. It doesn't make sense right now. Not listening to my inside voice gets me in trouble. Everything inside me is saying give William a chance. There is a moment hanging between the two of us. I knew that William had something to say. When it comes to these moments, I always feel like I'm standing on the edge holding my breath for a fall. I think William is as scared as me. I don't like being a coward. So, I make a choice and see where it goes, keeping a close eye on the big and small picture. William says, "How are you so steady and capable in the face of the things you fear the most? You say things like I just know and it's just enough to keep you going." Pushing aside the doubts. Doubt is a part of every move I make. Sometimes it helps me see things differently, but mostly it halts me in place, making me overthink everything. I just shrug at William. When you doubt too much, you're stalling, and that is when you get caught. I never had the luxury of standing still for that long. He nods. I think he wanted to think about what I told him, so he asked me, "Would you tell me the rest of what happened to Ano?" Yeah, I put up a good fight against JJ, but he is older, taller, faster. I didn't have any of my stuff. He pinned me to a wall. He started to unbuckle himself, ripping off my clothes. Everyone was watching, none of them stopped him. I thought I was done, but just before that Anong parted through the crowds and beat the shit out of JJ. He stood between me, my naked self, and the crowd. Manfred showed up just in time to pull Anong off JJ. Anong was angry at Manfred for stopping him and pulled away from Manfred to wrap his coat around me. He took me back to the living quarters. He let me cry and scream as much as I wanted, punching and kicking him as much as I wanted. It was the only time I got sick. He took care of me. At the time when he saved me, I was so grateful. But later on, I knew it was a mistake for him to carry on that way. William asked, alarmed at my answer. Why? I tell William. Manfred did eventually punish JJ for what he did to me. And when JJ was standing on the other side of the cage from me, I was ready for him inside that ring. For a while, there everything went back to normal. Between the three of us, JJ would watch, but he never crossed Manfred's yard again. But he was a fly in Victoria's ear, and she started to pay attention to our side of the field. She didn't like that Manfred was treating me so well. So, she started isolating me and the other kids to places like the pits. Ano was being watched, and one day when Manfred and I were at a fight, Ano was supposedly shipped to a new location where he was needed for the accounts. Manfred couldn't get a hold of him. He just assumed he was in a flight. Never did he believe that Victoria would let JJ get away with something like that. I knew in my guts that something was wrong. I went and looked for him. I found Anong shoved in a barrel. I knew he died because of me, and Manfred never said anything, but he knew too. William, hearing the rest of my story, said to me, "Something like that wasn't your fault, honey." Yeah, I know, William. My number one rule is that my life means more to me than anyone else. I know Anong wasn't a good person. I knew who he worked for, and what he was doing. It didn't make me value his life less. I value the lives of people that have had my back. The end of my story was silent. William just held my hand. We sat in the night. Then he says, Honey, I'm glad to know you. I'm glad you're such a badass. I am glad you've made it here strong and free. I'm glad I get to see what happens to you, whatever your choice. I nod and say, thank you. I think I should do something for the guys. William agrees. They would probably appreciate that. Especially Brom. The man is beside himself. He doesn't like to make girls or women mad or upset. Yeah, I get it. Man, I did enjoy kicking that tree's ass. It's not the same as working with people. William chuckles at me. I may come to regret this. If you want after brunch, I will offer to spar with you. That got my attention. What, really? I told you I'm not as breakable as you think I am. Yes, I will spar with you. We'll see. That was all I could say to him. The next morning, I got up at my usual time of 4:30. To my surprise, William got up earlier than he normally did, about 6. At first, we were both quiet but started chatting as I was making food. When Brom and Wood came in from morning rounds to eat, they kept looking between me and William, trying to gauge the mood. When Wood whispers, "Watch it, Brom, it's the cactus pickle," I froze and turned on the spot. William's face was hiding behind a tablet, trying not to let me see him laugh. When I give Wood an icy stare. "Excuse me, what hell did you just call me?" He don't falter at my gaze. "You heard me, cactus pickle. You know, a little sour, always prickly." I stand there for a good second, letting that one sink in. Then I burst out into uncontrollable laughter. I don't know why that hit me, but I couldn't stop until I was seeing spots in my vision. When I say to Wood, "Well, damn, that was funny, Wood. I bet you still can't beat me this morning." The look in his eyes was priceless. "Is that a fact, sister? All right, I'll take what you have to offer." I say, "Remember, you still owe me." Wood says, "Don't care." All right. The awkward feeling was gone. I did lose to Wood. I was tired from not sleeping. I slept well that night. The next day I started doing conditioning, because I'd been out of practice. I told William to give me until after brunch. He seemed fine with this, so my 3 goals are to get through this brunch with William, get myself back to fighting shape, and finish my parkour run. One day when William was in town, Wood and I had just gotten back from a run when I noticed Brom in the office he shared with Wood by himself. I passed by but stopped and turned around when I noticed the door was open. I marched straight up to his desk and didn't even wait for him to notice me. When I say to Brom calmly and clearly, "I acknowledge you for your supreme skills, to see more than most. I do not care if you have 3 sisters, 5 daughters, a mom, and a wife. To think you know me as a person and woman, because you have people and women in your life, means nothing. I am Natalie Honey B. Ledger, formerly the Leona B. of the CEOs, unlike anyone you have ever met. Too much for anyone to handle. I need no one's permission or approval. So, watch what you say or I won't forgive you so easily next time." Brom and I just took each other in. When he says to me, "I won't make the same mistake twice, Miss Honey." Nodding, I just walked out knowing that was all that needed to be said.